Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Cherie Best. You're listening to the Just Love Them podcast. Join me on a journey to understand and find peace with those we love who have left their faith. Today, I have joining me Emil Harker, and I am excited to introduce him. A little bit about Emil. He's an expert in conflict. For over 20 years, his passion has been about getting through the fluffy stuff to the real nuts and bolts that help people deal with inevitable conflict. His book, You Can Turn Conflict into Closeness, has been well received by professional therapists and couples alike, and was endorsed by Dr. John Gottman as a must read. He is a frequent expert guest on several podcasts, radio, and TV programs, including Channel 2, 4, and 5. And he was even on the Ricky Lake Show with former NBA Antoine Walker, talking about professional athletes. He has his own podcast called The Emil Show. His new book, Confidence in Conflict, is used in Fortune 500 companies, helping them turn breakdowns into breakthroughs in business. When Emil is home, you'll find him in the kitchen, baking bread and eating it. Welcome, Emil.
Thank you. What a wonderful introduction. That was so sweet. And gosh, I love the title of your podcast. How
Thank
did
you.
you how did you come up with that as your title? Because like it's both the theme and the idea behind it all.
It was one of those things I can't take credit for. It just came to me.
Hmm.
It did. And I knew it. The minute that it came to me, I knew it. So, yeah. So I don't get to take credit for that, but I love it too. So thank you for that. And it is an honor to have you on the program today.
I'm happy to be here. It's an honor to be with you, to share and to talk about important stuff that makes life happen.
That's right. That's right. Well, the reason why I've asked Emil here today is to talk about something really specific. And I'm going to give a little bit of background of my own story. And for my listeners, if you listen to episode 3 of this season, it was Candace's story. And in Candace's story, she talked about her oldest daughter and making choices that she didn't really feel good about and that were affecting the culture of the family, and how much that scared her and how she reacted to it. Well, I had the same experience when I was raising my children, 7 children. My oldest daughter started making choices that were so outside of the way I had raised her, and it scared me. I had 3 younger daughters coming up, and they idolize this oldest one. She's 16, she wears makeup, she's super cool, she's beautiful, she's popular. So these younger 3 daughters coming up, they wanted to be like their older sister. And so when she started making different choices, it affected the way the younger ones saw things and wanted to do things. And quite honestly, it frightened me. And because I wasn't okay with these choices. And
No.
so I started doing things, I didn't know how to handle it. So I started doing things like tightening down on the restrictions, trying to exercise greater control, being inflexible, being strict. And while I thought those things would work at the time, they had the very opposite effect. They totally pushed that child away. And the 3 younger ones didn't see that I was right. No, they thought she was awesome and mom was the bad guy. Oh, it was so rough. And so I didn't handle it well. And I feel like, and I've done a lot of apologizing since then, by the way, but I do feel like that this is a common problem in families where the parents want everything to be a certain way. And when it isn't, they get scared and they react in ways that are not always helpful. So, Emil, I'm so glad that you're here to address that. I don't know if what I'm describing has a name or not, but I know that you deal with this all the time, and I would love for you to give
Man,
some direction and some help.
this is just a painful place. Like as parents, you love your kids and you have so much more perspective. And with that perspective, we can see all the things that can create pain and discomfort in our kids' lives. And when we see that and we see that we could, at least we like to think that we could do something about that, How could we not? So we do what makes the most sense to us, and that is to create boundaries. That's the idea. Well, you know
Yeah,
what? These are my boundaries, and I am going to in our family, this is what we do. Let's create the boundaries, build the walls, and enforce them.
absolutely.
And I need
Absolutely.
some soldiers marching around these walls so that people know it's safe in here and comfortable, you know? And it's
Yeah.
like, I want to get out of the prison instead
Mhm.
of, thanks for making it so safe, Mom. You're so sweet. It just, and it does, you're right. It's like, it's such a scary place to be, and we're not trained. What are we supposed to do in those situations?
Yeah.
And like the word that you use is that fear, like you're just scared. Fear is a powerful motivator. It's just not a very smart one. Think about it.
And yet it's the one so many
Right.
go
Oh,
to.
yeah. Because fear requires no thought process. We organically, impulsively respond with fear.
Yes.
But to communicate or interact or make decisions when we see potential risks and not go there, that's not organic. That's not natural. And so I love that this is a topic that you bring up because if we do what comes natural, we're going to experience things like what you experience, where instead of us feeling effective and competent and saving the family, we end up making things worse, which is really frustrating because you think we're praying like crazy. Okay, we're reading the scriptures, we're talking to people, but we're breaking the very laws that govern what truly motivates people.
Yeah.
We think the 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 barriers or the boundaries, whatever you want to call them, are are our right and our responsibility. But that is not going to create what really motivates.
Yeah. And when you're right in the middle of it, it is so hard to be able to step back and see clearly. Like you can't see clearly. You're in the middle and it's hard to know what to do and to see what's actually happening.
It's a hard place to be, period, because it's not a comfortable place to have conversations with people.
Yeah.
Like this isn't something you hang out with your friends and say, "Hey, so guess what's going on with my life?" Yeah, yeah. And I have absolutely no control over it. And I feel fine about that. No, like it's those things that you're like going, I don't know if I want people to know what's going on. And I don't want to admit that maybe I don't have as much control as I'd like to think that I did. So it puts people in a really awful situation when there's so much at stake. And out of fear, we start making decisions that may be counterproductive, wherein the things that we should be doing aren't natural. So,
So what do you
so,
do?
so you want to talk about some of those things?
I
Okay.
do want to talk about that. I'm anxious to hear what you have to say.
Well, the first thing is when we operate out of fear, we don't have faith.
That's true.
And your podcast, the name of your podcast, you know, it's it's how do you love them? How do you love someone that you don't agree with? Or are we conditionally loving?
Yeah.
Which we would never want to admit that we are
Never.
because we're a mom. We love unconditionally. Okay, but are we loving unconditional? Now, being lovable isn't the same thing as loving, okay? Because we can be permissive and we can be enabling and all the things that aren't good, which is kind of lovable, but it's not really effective. The very essence of the fear that drives us is a lack of the faith. And if we truly believe what we believe, then we also support and value agency. And we want to foster agency. That becomes our connection point for loving. We don't have to agree to love, but we need to connect. So the focus isn't on correction. The focus is on connection.
Ooh.
Connection with your daughter or your husband or your wife or your whoever it is. Because it is impossible to influence if you do not have a connection. The stronger the connection, the stronger the influence or the correction. People don't care about what you think unless they are convinced that you care about them. So if the focus is on correction, then you're literally being selfish. You're trying to dial down your own anxiety by trying to control other people.
That is a very interesting way to look at that.
Doesn't that sound awful though? It's like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. And so if we focus on the connection instead of the correction, then it gives us something to talk about. We don't have to choose the topic. The topic is irrelevant. The process of the conversation is what truly changes people. Information is inadequate to create change or motivation. Information won't do it. Emotion is what changes people. It changes their mind. Then once their mind is changed, then they'll be motivated to learn more. So people actually don't get convinced by different information or new information. I mean, look at this. I mean, we have a very divided country with smart people, both Republican and Democrat. If we think information and debate is going to change things, we're out of our minds. No one changes their minds because there's new information. They literally change their minds when they feel connected with. That's the first thing, which is actually, I don't want to say it's manipulative because manipulative has a really negative connotation when it comes to communication and connection, but it has impact. There is value, there is substance to connecting. When someone feels connected, what happens is they start to care.
It reminds me that we have a friend who just retired from the FBI, and he told us about how he would get close to spies that were in jail and get them to talk, and how he did it was through connection. And he would literally just go and sit by their cell every day. And then he would, first, it would just be little minimal conversation, but eventually over time, he would get that connection, and that's how he would do it. So, connection, I mean, that's a kind of a negative example, but the power of connection.
Absolutely. If it works with hostage negotiation, with, interrogation tactics, like if it works with people who have it in their business to hurt others
Hmm.
and it works in that situation, it might work with teenagers.
It might. It
It
might.
might work with your kids or your partner. So, and let me explain, like when connection happens, there's a neurochemical of oxytocin that gets released in your body. And oxytocin, most moms know, is the bonding hormone. It's that skin to skin contact. And that's why, as soon as you have that baby's latching on. And you don't, I mean, most of the pictures that you see when someone has a baby, the mom doesn't have a shirt on. All right.
Right.
That's just her hair maybe just barely got done. She don't have a shirt on. You see her bare shoulders because that baby is right there on the skin. That's that connection. And we know and understand how important that is. But for some reason, we kind of put a little window around. It's for babies. No, this actually works with adults and criminals. You know, these are terrorists that this works with.
Yeah.
So when you connect with somebody in a meaningful way, oxytocin is released, which is the trust and bonding hormone. So when people say, you know what, you can't change people's minds, once they've got their mind made up, mm-mm. All you can do is you can only control yourself. You don't get to make decisions for other people. And when we make that cold, hard, black and white, decision, what happens is we ignore this huge window of influence that we have by how we are connected. I can actually change someone's chemistry in their brain by connecting with them. I didn't say, hey, can I adjust the chemical balance in your brain for a second? Because I need you to trust me. But true manipulators know that and they use that.
Yeah.
Okay. But if we're honest and we're kind and we're truly operating out of the source of love, then we can be faithful, full of faith, not fearful, faithful in connecting with them where they are instead of panicking out of fear. to see if we can't correct them. Once we connect with them, we change their chemistry. And if there's more trust and closeness, then they literally care more about what you think. So you've increased the quality or the potency of your own opinion, not because you said it louder, longer, because you changed their chemistry. Once their chemistry has changed, then information has a place for that little seed to grow.
I like that.
That's when we start to have a conversation about challenging them. So there's steps, there's stages. First stage, understand the crap out of that person. Some people have a really hard time doing that because they think that, well, if I take the time to really validate how they feel and what they're thinking, then doesn't that mean I'm agreeing? No, it doesn't. You don't have to. I think there's a paradox here. How can you disagree if you don't understand? So
Ooh,
take
yeah.
the time to truly understand so then you can know what you don't agree on. So take the time to really understand them. If they say something like, I just can't believe in a church with a prophet that that uses money for capital gain. Okay. Look, I don't have to agree or disagree. I can have a totally different philosophy. All we do is we take the time to understand them. Yeah, tell me more about that. That does sound kind of funky, doesn't it? Like if you think about the LDS church has millions and millions and millions of dollars and they're buying up more and more land and we're still paying tithing. Like when does it go away, right? And they're like, yeah, look, I'm barely getting by and they want more of my money. It's ridiculous. I know when you look at it like that, it's like, come on, the church sounds super greedy. See, I'm not agreeing with them.
Right.
I'm understanding them and making sure they feel safe enough. And it may take a while because they're like going, wait a second, because I know you don't agree. I know you don't agree. So where's this going? Which creates confusion. So first step, understand the crap out of them, really, not pathetically, not patronizing, not like I'm going to do a checklist and go, so how you feel is blah, blah, blah. And you feel really no, lean into it. Be their advocate for their position. You don't have to agree. Because once they feel connected in bonding, their chemistry changes. There's another neurochemical that gets released, and confusion and safety create curiosity. Confusion and safety is a release of dopamine. Dopamine is when your brain becomes more plastic and receptive to new information. Okay, now I want you to compare that confusion and not feeling safe and understood creates anxiety. Anxiety does not release dopamine, not at all.
No.
It releases cortisol. Cortisol, the stress hormone. Stress hormone is not designed to help you receive information, it helps you fight or flight. So, all this isn't just like, I'm going to use magical words and hope that they work. No, there's literally reasons why we use this language because it changes the chemistry of the person. Now, if you do this in a manipulative way, I guarantee you it will backfire. You're not that clever. You're not that good at it. And plus, that's coming out of a place of fear, not faith, and it will backfire so bad. But sometimes our hearts, the love that we don't have the tools to connect. We don't have the structure of the language to create a connection so that we can open up their mind, unlock it chemically, so that they can really take in a different point of view or perspective. Okay, step one, connect. A million times over, connect, 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 connect. Understand the crap out of them. So that's step one. Number two, when they feel understood, then you can ask them if they're open to being challenged. Can you challenge them? There's different ways of saying that. You can say, hey, can I push back on that for a second? Do you want to know what my point of view or perspective is? Do you want to know how I see it? Now, if we've done a good job connecting with them emotionally and they feel safe and understood, then they're going to be way more receptive because they're going to be curious and safe to see a different point of view perspective. And you can even say, look, you don't even need to believe what I believe. But if you want to understand how I make sense of it, especially since I kind of understand where you're coming from, I'm happy to share. Now, this is this takes patience and self-discipline because oftentimes we want to say, hey, 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 when's it going to be my turn? Hey, I've been listening to you and I think I've done a really good job validating you and I'm running out of patience. Okay, guess what we just did? We slipped out of faith into fear and control. We've just lost all that effort we put into creating a connection.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people are just waiting for you to stop talking so they can say how they feel and what they think. And it's exactly what you're describing. And it doesn't validate.
It's not going to work. It's going to backfire. And then they're going to have less confidence in the effort that you put into connecting because they're going to feel manipulated. Oh, so this is what you do, mom. You take the time to understand me, but then it's only if I'll listen to you and validate you. I'm not ready for that right now. For 15 years, you've been cramming this crap down my throat, and I ain't going to have it anymore. I don't need to play your games and sing from your sheet of music for you anymore. It's my life. Soon, remember, as soon as even if they said that, oh, I would love that because that gives me something to connect with them on. If I'm going to understand the crap out of it, you know what? I'm going to validate it. I'm going to understand. Yeah, I can only imagine how frustrated and trapped and controlled and manipulated you feel. Because what did I do? I kept you in a box of what information that I was going to allow you to have. You didn't feel loved and supported and encouraged to think on your own. Because as soon as you started talking, as soon as you started to hint about something that I didn't agree with, what did I do? I shut it down. That's not helping you figure out what you want. It's like forcing you. It's like I'm a hypocrite. Imagine what they think if you say that. They're confused. They're like, I don't know how to make sense of that.
I think they might faint even.
Yeah, it's a shocker for sure. And in that moment of like, oh wow, you're accountable. I can actually connect with somebody on that level. Like that's validating for me. And validation has another level of psychological power, and that is if you understand me, okay, then you have to be reasonable. If you're reasonable and you don't agree, uh-oh, am I being reasonable? Okay, there's power in understanding. For psychological continuity, we all believe that we're reasonable people. So if you understand me, by default, you're reasonable.
Yes.
But you don't agree with me on every point. So, as reasonable as you are, why don't you agree with me? That creates confusion. And if they feel totally understood, then they'll be curious. Then they'll have a more open mind to being challenged. So I
Love
make sure
that.
they feel totally understood and validated, supported, safe, beautifully confused because I understand them so much and I don't agree. And then I invite to challenge them. Do you want to know what I think? Do you want to know how I see it? Some people get really worried about that part because they're like, what would they say no? Let them say no. If they say no, there's two ways of approaching it. One is, really? We've spent 30 minutes, half an hour, an hour, whatever, and I've really wanted to understand you because I care about you, even though I'm not on the same page with you, and you don't want to understand or to see it from how I see it. Really. And that hurts. And then let that meld, okay? Let that marinade in the meat of their minds. Because I promise you this, if they say no, it's because they're not ready yet. So we need to marinate a little bit more. And they're probably already going through their mind of what you'd be saying. Well, I know what she's going to say. And so they're giving themselves the lecture that you would or the information that you would, and you don't even have to spend the energy. They're doing it to themselves.
Wow.
And so you don't even have to say anything. You know what? Maybe now is not a good time. But I really appreciate you feeling like you could talk to me about some things. And I'm sorry that in the past I haven't done such a good job. If you think their rebellion is going to increase because you understand them, then you don't understand psychology. And that's fear based. when people feel understood, they care. And when they care, they want to invest more into that relationship. And so in some situations, they're going to um, try to be more careful about what they do around their siblings because they care about you. But if you try to control them, then the last thing they want to do is to comply, because complying means they're abandoning their agency and they're giving it to somebody who doesn't even deserve it,
Yeah.
their parent.
Who's the enemy?
Right. Who thinks they're doing what's right, but obviously isn't, and they don't even realize it. And they're
Yeah.
they're in their, righteous indignation about, I'm going to lock down, when in reality we should be going, hey, let's have a conversation. Which, I know it's painful. I know it's awful. It's so scary because you think about the ultimate consequences of what this looks like. But we're only seeing it through a keyhole of time. We're not seeing the big picture of time. And who are we to say we know what the path is? We don't know. Their path could go way off before they come back on. And the things that they learn off the path could never have been taught while they've been on it. So instead of us getting panicky, more than ever when they leave that path, they'll need our support. They need our love. They need us to show the light when they can't see and they're like, I'm lost. How do I get back? You're like, come on back.
Yeah. I remember a time when our daughter was going through all of this, our oldest daughter, and we were all scared and everything, and she was making choices that, in my opinion, were just horrible and destructive and so hard. And we got the inspiration through a prayer that it was better for her to learn these lessons while she was in our home than after she left. And so even though she was doing things that we did not agree with, that we did not feel were careful and safe and smart, that really shifted our thinking, that it was better for her to learn those things in our home than after she left and had not that safety net.
And we would love to create a bigger buffer between, like in your situation, your daughter and your younger kids, your younger daughters. Um, and that would be simple and that would be pleasant, but not reality. And so
Yeah.
what we need to do is we need to step into that role and have conversations that are not focused on behavior, but focused on connection and understanding. Because who knows, you might lose all of those kids. If you lose all of the kids and the relationship, you're doomed. If you lose all of the kids, but you have a fantastic relationship, that connection is the saving grace. Without a connection, I'm anything, like when I think about leverage, like even psychological leverage, you can't move anything if it's not touching, if it's not connected anywhere. So we have to have a strong connection with the people that we love and care about, especially when their behaviors, their choices aren't on the right path. Because who knows, maybe that's our journey. Maybe that's what we're supposed to do. I imagine a father in heaven going, hey, Emil, you know how you say you really want to learn how to love like Christ loved? Try this one. I'm like, but wait, but I'm the dad, and the dad's supposed to, but oh man, I did, so I got to do. Oh man, this is hard. He goes, yeah, you signed up for it, Emil. You said you wanted to do this, so do it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes we think as parents that our success is synonymous to the choices our kids make. So, what does that mean about our Heavenly Father?
Ooh, yeah.
If he was a better dad, if he spent more time with his kids, if he knew how to really love and support his kids, they wouldn't have made those choices. Can we say that without lightning coming down and striking me dead?
Nope.
So, who the crap are we to think, I know Heavenly Father lost a few kids, but like, what are you going to come up with to justify the way you value your success is based on the choices of your kids? I'm just saying that's got a lot of pride in it. That's
Yes,
got
it
a lot of
does.
arrogance in it. Because if our Heavenly Father couldn't pull it off, who the crap are you? Maybe you
That's
should take a lesson learned from our Father in heaven.
that's powerful. It's a good point.
those are just a couple of tools. Some of the things that are frustrating is what do we do? We got, is it only just about connection? Well, what about things that are dangerous? What about problems? And what do we do about boundaries? What if our kids are bringing in drugs? What about the language that they bring? Like, what do we do? What do we do? And that's seven other podcasts that we would talk about is, well, how do we create boundaries? What are reasonable boundaries? What are the consequences to those boundaries? What expectations are realistic for us when there's a divergence of values? And we used to say, well, these are our family values. You can't have family values unless all of the members believe in it. So you can't say, well, these are our family's values. Nope. As soon as one doesn't agree, they're not the family's values. They're mom and dad's values that we're hoping that the kids embrace. So we can't even use that as some kind of a standard of expectation. That is literally a dictator. Well, this is
Yes.
not what we believe. And so you have to change your behavior to fit the values that we have. And you have the agency to choose what we want you to. Ready, break. Heil Hitler.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's not how it works.
Well, I know that we're probably running out of time. Our goal is to try to, keep it in bite-sized pieces for people to get
Yeah.
while they're, getting groceries or running to and from work and stuff like that. So, always feel free, Cherie, to reach out to me and say, "Hey, look, let's talk about some other things."
I
But
would love that.
hopefully today you have a little bit of hope that there may be a purpose to the path that your kids are taking or your partner's taking, but your path will always be the path of love, always be the path of connection, not correction. And if you do that, then we truly become better people and more potent in our ability to influence the choices of others.
Yeah. And even when you screw up, like I did, I screwed up so much. Even when that happens, it's never too late. That was years ago. That was probably 15 years ago, that story I told at the beginning. And I am so happy that now that daughter is still not making the choices that I would have chosen, right, for her, but she is making the choices that are right for her. And none of that actually even matters to me anymore. What matters to me is to have a great relationship with her. And we do. And it's to her credit that she could forgive all the mistakes I made on her. And my other ones, my other three daughters that came up behind, they've made their own choices, various choices. And to me now, none of that matters. What matters is the relationship. And to their credit, they were able to forgive my messes up and on my controllingness and all the terrible things that I did. And and in the end, the relationship is what matters.
Right.
And it's never too late because I've been there. I screwed up
Yeah.
and my kids, they came back
Yeah.
and loved me anyway.
It sounds like you actually did a pretty good job as a mom. If they
Well,
have that capacity to forgive you, then you probably succeeded.
well, thanks. I feel like, we all are just doing the best we can. And if we can just forgive each other for being human and keep trying, that's what really makes the difference.
Amen.
Yeah. Emil, thank you so much for being with me today. Will you take just a minute and talk about if someone wanted to connect with you, how would they do that?
Sure. I think the easiest way is just go to emilharker.com, EMILHARKER. You can also email me at emil@emilharker.com. Pretty easy to remember. And yeah, that's an easy way to, if you have questions for me, if you want to talk, and yeah, that's the best way to do it.
Thank you. And I will also put all that information in the show notes so you can also find it there. Listeners, thank you so much for being with us today. Do you know someone who is struggling with this issue that we've discussed today? If you do, please feel free to share this podcast with them so that they can get the help that they need. And join me again next time for another episode of Just Love Them.